The Missouri Tigers, of course, along with Texas A&M, the two newest members of the SEC. They've been around about 10 years now. They went 5-5 last season in a shortened 10-game SEC-only schedule. And while 5-5 is not a great record, I'll admit that, they actually exceeded expectations. Most people had Missouri picked to win 3 or 4 games. So they did a little bit better than what most people thought they would do. Can ELIAH DRINKWITZ take them to the next level in 2021? He was a first-year head coach last year, had no spring practice, no real off-season. This year, year 2, with a full spring, a full off-season, a full summer camp to implement his styles and philosophies. Can Missouri improve and maybe try to win the SEC East? We're going to find out in today's video when I give you a preview and a game-by-game prediction for the Missouri Tigers. Let's go. Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live through on YouTube today. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? It's true, and some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You can let me know at the end of the video whether you think this one was watchable or not. Also, let me know what you think I get wrong. By the end of the video, I'm going to give you a record for Missouri for 2021 and let you know who I think they're going to beat and who I think they're going to lose to. If you disagree with me, make sure and let me know down below. All right, let's get started with the Missouri Tigers. All right, like I mentioned, 5-5 last year under first-year head coach ELIAH DRINKWITZ. So this will be his second year, but really his first year with a full, normal, regular spring and off season to try to get going up there in Columbia, Missouri. Best win last year, probably LSU. They beat LSU early in the season. I know LSU wasn't great last year either, but that's probably Missouri's best win. Worst loss has to be that Tennessee loss. They got absolutely destroyed by Tennessee last year. Hard to see how or why that happened when you look back on the season. And of course, Tennessee was just a dumpster fire per usual, but they absolutely rolled over Missouri last year. Got to avoid those embarrassing losses to bad teams if you want to try to take a step forward in the SEC. Let's take a look at Missouri's recruiting. I like to do this for every team we talk about. I know this doesn't give you an exact idea of the talent that's on a team, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the talent that's available on a team. I look at the last 4 years recruiting classes. I know teams bring in players through the transfer portal. You have players that transfer out, players that transfer in. All those things affect the total amount of talent you have on your team, but recruiting gives you a pretty good idea of the type of talent a team is able to get. If you take a look at the most recent class in 2021, 27th in the nation, and that's actually one of the best recruiting classes Missouri's had in a long, long time. 27th in the nation, 11th in the SEC. 2020, 51st, not good. 13th in the SEC, so next to last in the SEC. 2019, they were 37th. It's not too bad, but again, 13th in the SEC. And in 2018, 43rd in the nation, their recruiting class was good for 13th again in the SEC. When you look at talent from top to bottom on teams in the SEC, there's not very many teams you will find with less talent than Missouri. So you got to have a coach in there that can get the absolute most out of the players he has. And when you do sign a big recruit, Missouri, when they do sign a big recruit, a 4 or 5 star guy, they need to work out, right? You don't have a bunch of 4 and 5 stars sitting on the bench at a team like Missouri, not when you have these type of recruiting rankings. Let's take a look at Missouri's offense and see what it might look like in 2021. QB, Connor Bazelak, he returns from last year. Now, he did not start the season last year. Sean Robinson started the season at quarterback for Missouri last year. Sean Robinson was replaced in the second game by Connor Bazelak, and the rest is history. Connor Bazelak started every game after that. He threw for 2,366 yards last year, completing 67% of his passes. Beat LSU in his first ever start, threw 4 touchdowns in that game, and had 406 yards. By far the best game he had all season long. He threw 6 interceptions last year, but 3 of them came in one game, the last game against Mississippi State. Take that last game out of there. 3 interceptions wouldn't have been bad for basically playing 9 games. 6 interceptions in 9 games. Not good. Got to get that number down. You got to avoid those multiple turnover games. Can't win games that way. More on Sean Robinson when we talk about the defense in a second. He's actually been moved to the defensive side of the ball. The quarterback that started the season out for Missouri last year is now playing safety over on the defensive side of the ball. But we'll get to that when we talk about the defense. Running back situation. Had a great running back situation last year. I really liked Larry Roundtree. He was really good at MIZZOU for a couple of years. He's gone now off to the NFL. You do have a couple of guys back with some experience. Not sure either of them or anybody on your roster, honestly, is going to be as good as Roundtree was. Maybe you're going to have to go with a committee type approach here. But you got Tyler Batty. He's a senior, so he's got a lot of experience. He's really more of a third down back, though, if you look at the way he's built. He can catch out of the backfield, too. Caught 333 yards receiving last year as a running back out of the backfield. And you have a sophomore young kid, ELIAH Young. Good number 2. He's more of a traditional running back. We'll see how much playing time he gets. Like I said, Tyler Batty, definitely the experienced veteran there. Wide receiver, Kiki Chisholm. Yes, sir. Our buddy Kiki. Kiki Chisholm, 35 catches last year, led the team. He returns. You got an Ohio State transfer, Mookie Cooper. Now, not good enough to start at Ohio State, but you can be really, really good and still not be good enough to start at wide receiver at Ohio State. This guy was very highly recruited. He'll make an instant impact at Missouri. If he can develop some chemistry with quarterback Connor Bazelak, learn the offense, get the plays down, all that kind of thing, he could end up being the best wide receiver on that team. Ohio State's absolutely loaded at the wide receiver position. So getting a very highly ranked recruit from Ohio State that just wasn't quite good enough to play much at there doesn't necessarily mean the guy's not any good. They're loaded with wide receivers up there. And like I said, Mookie Cooper could be the best receiver Missouri has. We'll see. You have 2 senior tight ends with a ton of experience. And you have a total of 4 tight ends that you rotate in and out, all of which have experience. So your tight ends and your wide receivers that you have coming back, not great, not amazing, but you've got some with some experience, particularly at the tight end position. I think Missouri really needs Mookie Cooper to be a breakout wide receiver if they want to take things to the next level. You need to have a playmaker at the wide receiver position. Offensive line, you lost your best offensive lineman to the NFL. Borum, was that his name? But almost everyone else on the offensive line returns. You had some injuries last year. You started 6 or 7 different players in different spots along the offensive line. Pretty much all of them returned this year except for Borum, who went off to the NFL. It's just going to be a matter of putting the puzzle together, finding out which player plays best at which position and which starting group of 5 gives you the best chance to win. Looking over on the defensive side of the ball, I mentioned former quarterback Sean Robinson has moved over to the defensive side of the ball and will probably start at safety for Missouri this year. He played a lot last year, especially in the last game of the year. So we'll see how he does this offseason, learning that safety position, but probably going to see a lot of playing time over there. They went out and hired a new defensive coordinator. They got him out of the NFL to Steve Wilks. Very important hire here for DRINKWITZ. The defense was not very good last year, and you can't miss on a bunch of hires over and over again at the coordinator positions. You got to get a coordinator in there that can get things turned around. Is he the answer? We'll see. Like I said, he's got a ton of experience. Comes from the NFL. Clearly, he knows what he's doing. We'll see how it works out in Missouri. But that was the big hire they made this offseason. When you look over on the defensive line, you got Whiteside, Robinson. They both return. What's the other guy's name? I'm drawing a blank on. There's a third guy, too. You have a lot of depth along the defensive line, which is important in the SEC because you'll see teams rotate defensive linemen in and out of the game. This was something Missouri was unable to do last year due to injury and just not really having the depth to rotate those guys out, and it caught up with them towards the end of the season. Missouri got beat bad a couple of times at the end of the year where they really just looked like they were wore out, didn't have enough bodies. The bodies they did have weren't rested, that kind of thing. This is a benefit to have 2 or 3 different guys that you can rotate in and out. That should help. And you get pass rusher back, Trajan Jeffcoat. What did he have, 6 sacks last year? Did I write it down? I don't remember. Yeah, he had 6 sacks last year. Weird story with this Trajan Jeffcoat. He quit the team kind of out of the blue in 2019. And then just kind of showed up last fall right before the season started and said he changed his mind, and they let him back on the team. And it's a good thing they did. He was one of your best players last year, and you get him back. Linebacker, you lost your best linebacker, Nick Bolton. He's off to the NFL. He was really, really good last year. One of the best linebackers in America. People can laugh if they want to. Oh, he played for Missouri. It doesn't matter where you play. There's talent all over the place. He was really, really good. You brought in another transfer, this one from Rice. And again, you might say, well, Rice, this guy had 21 and a half tackles for loss back in 2019. He didn't play in 2020. So he needs to be good for you. You lost the guy to the NFL. If things don't work out with his transfer for Rice, you could have a pretty bad situation there at middle linebacker. DBs, your best corners return. That's good news. Even better news, they were true freshmen last year, and they got a ton of experience. Now we got 3 of them. They're all sophomores. They all played a lot last year. They all have a year of experience now. They should each be a lot better. Safety, Sean Robinson, like I mentioned, over from the offensive side of the ball, former quarterback, lost his job to Connor Bazelite. Be interested to see how he does over there on the defensive side of the ball. So there you go. Question marks really on both sides of the ball, I think, if you're Missouri. Hard to replace Roundtree at the running back position. We'll see how that works out. Stability at the quarterback situation, of course, is a positive. Wide receivers, no real playmaker on the team, at least not yet. If you can get the guy from Ohio State to step up, that would be ideal. You look over on the defensive side of the ball, you lost a couple of players, most notably that middle linebacker to the NFL. You do have some depth at the defensive line position, which is a positive and a benefit that you didn't have last year. And Trajan Jeffcoat returning gives you a solid option in terms of rushing to QB. Defensive secondary, Sean Robinson, work in progress, former quarterback, clearly a very athletic guy. We'll see how quickly he can pick up the safety position. And 3 sophomore corners who all have a ton of experience from last year. All right, let's put their 2021 schedule up on the screen and see what they're going to do. All right, let's start things off at home against Central Michigan, and I'm giving you a win there. You better beat them. Don't embarrass yourself. I have you a win. You'll beat Central Michigan. Week 2 on the road at Kentucky. This is not going to be an easy game here. Kentucky is a pretty good team. If you saw the Kentucky video that I did, I think yesterday, you already know where I'm going here, but I have you beating Kentucky. But that's a 50-50 game at best. Some people seem to be higher on Kentucky than I am, and that's okay. And some people seem to be lower on MIZZOU than I am, and that's okay too. But I've got you winning this game week 2 on the road at Kentucky. You're 2-0. Week 3, another non-con game, this time against Southeast Missouri. Again, you'll beat them, no problem. You're sitting at 3-0. Things are looking great. Week 4, on the road at Boston College, a non-con Power 5 road game, and you're going to tote an L here. Boston College is not a great team, but neither is MIZZOU. Boston College does have a great quarterback, though. I know MIZZOU likes their quarterback, and I think Bazelak can have a pretty good year. He's not as good as the Jerkovic guy they've got up in Boston College. I think Boston College is a sneaky good team this year over in the ACC. You have to play them there. It's an unfamiliar opponent. It's not somebody you play all the time. I've got Boston College knocking you off. You're sitting at 3-1. Next up is Tennessee. Revenge game. Like I said, I don't know how, but they somehow beat the absolute soul and will to live out of you last year for no particular reason at all. I think you get revenge this year at home against the Voltard. I have you a win over Tennessee. North Texas, I give you a win here too. Boy, your non-con games are spread out like nothing I've ever seen. But North Texas at home, I gave you a win there. Texas A&M at home, lost. Texas A&M is a legitimate top 10 team this year, and depending on how that quarterback situation shakes out over there, they could even be better than that and possibly challenge Alabama to win the West. It's one of the tougher places to play. You're not winning there. Texas A&M will beat you. That's your second loss. Then you have your bye week. Come out of your bye week, you go on the road and play Vandy, probably the worst team in the SEC. Vandy looking at a 1 or 2 win season, probably in my opinion. I've got you with a big win on the road against Vandy. The next week at UGA, loss. UGA is a legitimate top 5, top 10 team, and you have struggled mightily against UGA since joining the SEC. You've been in the SEC now for 10 years. You're in the SEC East. You play Georgia every single year. You beat them one time. I think you're like 1-9 against Georgia since coming into the SEC. For whatever reason, Georgia seems to have your number. Even a couple of years when you won the East back 7-8 years ago, you were still busy losing to Georgia. I've got the Dogs knocking you off. That's loss number 3. Then you come back home for 2 big home games here, South Carolina and Florida. You could lose both of these games. Really, anything could happen in these two, in my opinion. Florida's not going to be the same Florida we saw last year. They can't lose that much of their offense and just keep on trucking along like nothing happened. They got to replace the quarterback, several of the wide receivers. Kyle Pitts at tight end is gone. And I'm not a believer in either of the options they have at quarterback position. I'm not a believer in Emory Jones, and I'm not a believer in the other kid, which is named Anthony Richardson. I've just not seen anything from either one of them that gives me any confidence that Florida's offense is going to be anywhere close to what it was last year. So you could beat them. It's possible. And as much as you've struggled with Georgia, it's sort of been the opposite story against Florida. I think you're 5-6 against Florida, or 5-5 or 5-6. I guess that would make you 1-10 against Georgia. But yeah, you're 5-6, I believe it is, against Florida. So you've given them a good game the majority of the years that you've been in the SEC. Coming up, just under 500, 5-6 against the Gators. Can you make it 6-6 this year? I don't know. South Carolina, again, I think you're better than South Carolina. I gave you a win there, and I gave you a win against Florida too. Now, you could lose that game, no doubt about it. This Kentucky and this Florida game, I've got you winning both of those. You could lose both of those. I mean, that's why these are prediction videos. We don't know what's going to happen until these games are played. What I do know is that almost every single year, every team beats at least one team they're not supposed to beat and loses at least one game that they're not supposed to lose. In your case, it's the following week at Arkansas. I've got you beating South Carolina and Florida just to turn around and lose on the road at Arkansas. And yes, I know how crazy that sounds. How can you beat Florida but lose to Arkansas? I get it. The same way Georgia beat Florida in 2019 and then turned around and lost to South Carolina. Weird things happen in football. The best team doesn't always win. If they did, there wouldn't be much point in watching these games. So I agree. You're probably at least as good, if not a little bit better than Arkansas. And Florida's probably a little bit better than you. But I've got you beating Florida and losing to Arkansas. That's a total of 4 losses there. Puts you at 8-4 for the year. I'm not sure what Missouri fans' hopes or expectations are for this season, but in my opinion, 8-4 in ELIAH DRINKWITZ's second year, which really just his first year. You can hardly even count last year because there was no offseason. I think 8-4 would be a huge step in the right direction. It's going to be tough. I'll admit there's a couple of games on there that are reaches. The Kentucky game, the Florida game in particular, those are going to be tough games. I've got you winning both of them. Maybe you lose, maybe you split them and you end up 7-5. Lose both of them, you could be 6-6. Or maybe you beat Texas A&M in Georgia and you go 9-3. But I've got you at 8-4. The 4 losses: Texas A&M, Georgia, Arkansas, and who was the 4th loss? On the road at Boston College. That's what I have. Deal with it. All right, appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.